What do you make of all the ridiculousness about you
We do.
and Brad reuniting on all these carpets all season long?
It's hysterical, but what else are they going to talk about?
For decades, Brad Pitt's romances have been a front-page spectacle. 2 marriages, countless rumored flings, and endless tabloid speculation have kept his name locked in Hollywood's love story Hall of Fame. But behind all the headlines, there has always been one woman who stood apart. Now, after years of silence, Brad has confessed that she was the one who left the deepest mark on his heart. Was it the woman fans have always suspected? Or a surprising name from his past? Let's trace his entire journey, from his earliest flames to the loves that shaped his life, and discover who Brad Pitt calls the love of his life. Early romances, before fame, before the global recognition. Brad Pitt was a small-town boy chasing a dream. Born in Shawnee, Oklahoma, and raised in Springfield, Missouri, he was not the child of Hollywood, but of the American Midwest. His upbringing was grounded in church life, football games, and school theater productions. When he finally packed his car and drove west to Los Angeles, he was just another young man hoping to break into an industry that devoured dreamers. He worked odd jobs, famously donning a giant chicken suit to attract customers to El Pollo Loco, while taking acting lessons and waiting for his break. Even then, however, Brad's looks made him impossible to ignore, and his charm made him magnetic. One of his earliest relationships came before his name was known by millions. In 1986, he began dating British pop singer Sunita, who had already tasted fame with hit songs in the United Kingdom. Their relationship stretched for nearly 2 years, ending in 1988, long before Brad's big break. Sunita would later describe him in glowing terms, calling him beautiful, sweet, and fun. She spoke of his youth and warmth, recalling how he was affectionate and easygoing, someone who didn't yet carry the weight of stardom. Years later, when she saw him in Thelma and Louise, she admitted to feeling regret. Confessing, she thought to herself, "Oh my God, what have I done?" It was the kind of sentiment that would echo throughout his life, women looking back on what might have been. Brad's next romance came with actress Jill Schoelen, his co-star in the 1989 horror film Cutting Class. Their relationship was brief, but it symbolized the first time Brad's love life became intertwined with his work. Jill had already been engaged to Keanu Reeves, and her involvement with Brad made minor waves in the industry gossip circuit. It ended as quickly as it began, but Brad was already moving in circles where romance and career overlapped seamlessly. Soon after, Brad was linked with E.G. Daily, a voice actress known for her distinctive performances in both animation and film. E.G. would later reflect on her time with Brad in his True Hollywood Story, describing him as deep-souled and intense. She saw in him not just physical beauty, but a visceral drive to succeed, a determination that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside. She believed he was destined for greatness, and she recalled that even during their brief relationship, his ambition set him apart. It was clear to her that Brad was not content to be another handsome face. He was a man aiming for something larger. Their romance did not last, but their bond did, and they remained on friendly terms long after parting. In 1989, Brad's name became entangled in one of his first celebrity controversies. He was rumored to be seeing actress Robin Givens, who at the time was embroiled in a messy separation from heavyweight boxing champion Mike Tyson. According to Tyson's own memoir, Undisputed Truth, he once returned home to find Brad in a car with Givens, and even claimed he caught them in bed. The story made headlines for its sheer drama. The future Hollywood superstar allegedly entangled with the wife of one of the most feared men in sports. Givens, however, would later deny the more salacious details, insisting that while Tyson did indeed see them together in a car, the story of them being in bed was fabricated. Whether the full truth will ever be known is doubtful, but the episode underscored a theme that would follow Brad throughout his life. His relationships would never again be private affairs. Another short but infamous chapter came when Brad briefly dated Christina Applegate, then one of television's brightest young stars, thanks to Married with Children. The two appeared together at the 1989 MTV Movie Awards, but in a twist that seemed pulled straight from a romantic comedy, Christina left Brad during the event for another man. Years later, when asked about the incident on Watch What Happens Live, she confirmed it was true, though she refused to reveal who the man was. It was an embarrassing moment for Brad, though history would show he recovered just fine. The romance that followed was more serious and lasted much longer. In late 1989, Brad began dating actress Juliette Lewis, who was just 16 at the time while he was 26. Their relationship lasted for 4 years, a rare stability during a time when Brad's career was accelerating rapidly. They starred together in the films Too Young to Die and California, and their chemistry was undeniable both on and off screen. Brad would later call their time together one of the greatest relationships he had ever experienced, telling Vanity Fair in 1995 that he still loved her even 2 years after their breakup. Juliette, however, was less sentimental when reflecting on their past. In 2014, she told People that she was tired of constantly being linked to Brad Pitt, emphasizing that she had moved on decades earlier. For her, being remembered more for her boyfriend than for her career was a frustration that never faded. But for Brad, the relationship represented one of the first times he experienced genuine intimacy in the midst of rising fame. It showed him what love could be, even under the intense gaze of the public. By the early 1990s, Brad Pitt was no longer just another young actor. His role in Thelma and Louise had turned him into a sensation, the kind of breakout that few achieve. Women swooned over his brief appearance as a charming drifter, and suddenly, Brad Pitt was a name everyone knew. The romances of his pre-fame years painted a picture of a man who was affectionate, ambitious, and capable of real connection. But it was clear that everything was about to change. He was now one of Hollywood's most eligible men, and the next chapter of his love life would be played out on a global stage. If all of these romances shaped a young actor learning who he was, which woman would change him forever once he hit the peak of fame? The Gwyneth Paltrow years. The answer was Gwyneth Paltrow. In 1995, Brad Pitt met Gwyneth on the set of David Fincher's dark thriller Seven. On screen, she played his wife, and off-screen, she became his partner in one of Hollywood's most talked-about romances of the decade. The two seemed perfectly matched. Gwyneth was elegant and intelligent, the daughter of actress Blythe Danner and director Bruce Paltrow, while Brad was the Midwestern heartthrob whose career was rocketing upward. Their relationship quickly became the talk of Hollywood. At the 1996 Golden Globe Awards, Brad openly referred to Gwyneth as his angel and the love of my life during his acceptance speech. Fans swooned at his words, convinced that this was a love destined to last. Together, they attended red carpets, fashion shows, and premieres, becoming one of the most glamorous couples of the 1990s. Their faces appeared on magazine covers, and their style influenced fans worldwide. But their bond was not just surface level. Behind the scenes, their romance was deeply personal. Gwyneth would later reveal that Brad proposed to her during a trip to Argentina. Standing on a balcony under the night sky, Brad asked her to marry him. Though they had discussed the idea before, the actual moment still came as a surprise, filling her with joy. She was only 24 at the time, but Brad believed she was the one. Their engagement dominated celebrity news. Fans speculated about when and where they would marry, what she would wear, and how they would balance their rising careers with married life. But in June 1997, it all came to an end. Gwyneth broke off the engagement, admitting years later that she simply wasn't ready for such a commitment. She described herself as immature, saying she was not prepared for the weight of marriage to someone like Brad Pitt. Her father, Bruce Paltrow, was reportedly devastated, as he adored Brad and considered him a wonderful partner for his daughter. For Brad, the breakup was a heartbreak, but he never spoke negatively of Gwyneth. In interviews years later, he remained respectful, and Gwyneth, too, reflected warmly on their time together. She described their connection as major love at first sight and acknowledged that Brad had been one of the great loves of her life. In 2022, during a public conversation with him, the two laughed together as old friends, showing that whatever pain they had once endured had long since healed. Their romance, though it ended before marriage, left a lasting mark on Brad Pitt's life. It showed him what it meant to love deeply, to commit fully, and to lose someone you believed was your future. It was a lesson in both passion and heartbreak, one that would shape the man he became. But when Gwyneth left, another love story was about to define an entire Hollywood era. The Golden Couple. When Brad Pitt met Jennifer Aniston, he was already one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces, thanks to legends of The Fall, Seven, and Fight Club. Jennifer, meanwhile, had become America's sweetheart as Rachel Green on Friends. In the mid-1990s, their paths first crossed through their managers, but at that time, nothing more came of it. She would later say that her first impression of Brad was that he was just a sweet, normal guy from Missouri. The timing changed everything. By 1998, both were single. Jennifer had just ended her relationship with actor Tate Donovan, and Brad's engagement with Gwyneth Paltrow had ended a year earlier. This time, when their managers set them up, sparks flew. Jennifer would later tell Diane Sawyer that their first date was easy and fun, a connection that felt natural rather than forced. Very quickly, the media noticed. In September 1999, they made their red carpet debut as a couple at the Emmy Awards. Brad wore sleek silver sunglasses, and Jennifer shone in a glittering gown. Fans went wild. This was not just a Hollywood romance. It was the Hollywood romance. The beautiful, grounded television star and the golden movie idol together looked like destiny. By November, at a Sting concert in New York, they announced their engagement. Jennifer flashed a dazzling diamond and platinum ring designed by Silvia Damiani, and reports surfaced that Brad had spent 7 months perfecting the design. Their wedding on July 29, 2000, cemented their place as the Golden Couple. Held in Malibu, it was as lavish as it was romantic, featuring 200 guests, a gospel choir, fireworks, and nearly 50,000 flowers. Jennifer's father, John Aniston, proudly walked her down the aisle, telling reporters afterward how beautiful his daughter looked. Some estimates placed the cost of the event near $1 million, making it one of Hollywood's most extravagant weddings of the era. The years that followed saw Brad and Jen embody the idea of Hollywood perfection. On red carpets, they were inseparable, often holding hands and laughing together. In 2001, Brad even made a memorable guest appearance on Friends, playing a character who despised Rachel Green, Jennifer's character. The meta-humor delighted fans, and the episode became one of the show's most iconic. Together, they launched a production company, Plan B Entertainment, alongside producer Brad Gray. It would go on to become a powerhouse, producing films like The Departed and 12 Years a Slave. At the time, though, the venture was seen as yet another example of their power as a couple. But beneath the perfect exterior, cracks were forming. In 2003, Jennifer gave an interview with W magazine where she hesitated to call Brad the love of my life. She admitted she wasn't sure about the phrase, though she called him a big love and said they had something special. For fans, it was a startling admission. Rumors began to swirl about Brad's connection with Angelina Jolie on the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and soon the narrative began to shift. In January 2005, Brad and Jennifer announced their separation after nearly 5 years of marriage. Their joint statement asked for privacy and denied that their breakup was the result of tabloid speculation, but the press refused to let go. By March, Jennifer filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. The divorce was finalized in October. Jennifer's interview with Vanity Fair later that year was raw and emotional. She admitted the breakup had left her cracked open, forcing her to feel everything in the harshest way possible. She described grief, sadness, and frustration at being reduced to a tabloid triangle. Photos of Brad and Angelina in Kenya with her children had surfaced just weeks after the separation, and Jennifer admitted seeing them was painful. Yet even in her pain, she refused to vilify Brad, insisting she was not defined by their breakup or the narrative the press imposed on her. For years, fans could not let go of the idea of Brad and Jennifer together. Their marriage had symbolized a golden era of Hollywood celebrity culture, where two beloved stars came together and seemed untouchable. Their divorce shattered that illusion, leaving millions of fans heartbroken alongside them. If Jennifer Aniston represented Hollywood's fairy tale, Angelina Jolie would soon represent its firestorm, passion, chaos, and a romance that burned the brightest until it burned out. From passion to fallout. In 2003, Brad Pitt signed on to star opposite Angelina Jolie in Mr. and Mrs. Smith. He was still married to Jennifer Aniston, but rumors of on-set chemistry began almost immediately. The film, about two married assassins who discover they've been hired to kill each other, required Brad and Angelina to share long hours of stunt work, intimacy, and high-octane action sequences. Their chemistry was undeniable, and the whispers grew louder. Angelina would later insist that they didn't fall in love immediately, but that they discovered a connection during filming. She described how they found joy in working together, laughing, and becoming a real team. For her, the turning point came when she realized she was looking forward to work every day simply because Brad was there. By the end of filming, both admitted they felt something that went beyond friendship. In January 2005, Brad and Jennifer announced their separation. By the summer, Angelina was photographed with Brad and her children in Kenya, sparking a media frenzy. By 2006, Angelina was pregnant with Brad's child, and in May she gave birth to their daughter, Shiloh. Shortly afterward, Brad formally adopted Angelina's two children, Maddox and Zahara, who both took the name Jolie Pitt. In 2007, they added another son, Pax, and in 2008, Angelina gave birth to twins Knox and Vivian. Suddenly, Brad, who had once been reluctant about fatherhood, was the patriarch of a family of 6 children. The couple became a global phenomenon, dubbed Brangelina by the press. They were not just actors, but humanitarian figures traveling to refugee camps, adopting internationally, and speaking on global issues. Their presence dominated magazines, television, and online coverage. Every move they made was watched and analyzed, from red carpets to family vacations. In 2014, Brad and Angelina married at their French estate, Chateau Miraval. The ceremony was intimate, with their children playing central roles. Angelina's dress was famously embroidered with her children's drawings, and their vows were written with help from the kids. For a moment, it looked like the fairy tale had found its second chapter. But cracks began to show. In 2015, the couple starred together in By the Sea, a film directed by Angelina about a troubled marriage. Many later saw it as an eerie foreshadowing of their own relationship. By September 2016, everything came crashing down. Angelina filed for divorce, citing the health of the family. Reports quickly surfaced about an altercation on a private plane, with allegations that Brad had become physical with one of the children. Brad denied harming any of his kids, and both the FBI and Child Protective Services closed their investigations without pressing charges. The divorce, however, was brutal and dragged on for years. Batard battles stretched into 2024 with financial disputes and the fate of Chateau Miraval at the center. The relationship that had once captivated the world had become one of Hollywood's most bitter separations. For Brad, the Jolie years were transformative. He had built a family, experienced the chaos of raising 6 children under constant scrutiny, and seen his private life weaponized in ways few could imagine. For Angelina, it was a chapter of passion and pain, one that ended with her vowing to put her children first, above all else. The story of Brad and Angelina was not just a romance. It was a cultural phenomenon that reshaped how the media covered celebrity couples. It represented both the height of passion and the depths of fallout, showing how love under the spotlight can collapse under its own weight. After 2 of the most famous love stories in Hollywood history ended in heartbreak, could Brad Pitt ever find stability, or was he destined to keep chasing love in the public eye? New faces, but old shadows. After the chaos of his separation from Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt disappeared from the dating scene for a time. The divorce, the custody battles, and the public fallout left him guarded. For the first time in years, Brad pulled back from the relentless spotlight, focusing on his children and his work. But the world never stopped watching. Every time he was seen with someone new, whispers began again. In 2018, rumors linked Brad to MIT professor and architect Neri Oxman. Oxman, renowned in the fields of design and technology, represented something very different from Brad's past partners. She was intellectual, respected in academic circles, and accomplished in her own right. The speculation began after Brad was seen visiting her at MIT, and insiders suggested that he was inspired by her brilliance. Some claimed he admired her as a friend. Others suggested more. Oxman herself denied that they were romantically involved, though she praised him as someone who still carried the timeless aura of classic cinema. The relationship, if there was one, ended quietly, but it showed that Brad was being drawn to women outside of Hollywood's typical orbit. By 2020, his name was linked to model Nicole Poturalski. The German model, decades younger than Brad, was seen with him in France at Chateau Miraval, the very estate he still co-owned with Angelina Jolie. Their connection seemed casual, with reports describing it as more of a fling than a committed romance. Sources insisted they enjoyed each other's company, but were never truly together. By October, just a few months after the rumors began, it was over. Later in 2022, after model Emily Ratajkowski separated from her husband, she was spotted spending time with Brad. Reports described their meetings as casual and fun, more about companionship than commitment. Friends hinted at attraction and mutual interests, including art, but neither Brad nor Emily pushed the narrative forward. Within weeks, the whispers faded, and the relationship dissolved before it could become more. Then came Inez de Ramon. The jewelry designer, who had recently separated from actor Paul Wesley, entered Brad's life quietly. By late 2022, the two were spotted together at a Bono concert, and insiders confirmed they had been dating for a few months. Unlike his other rumored relationships, this one grew steadier with time. They celebrated his 59th birthday together in December 2022, sharing a dinner with friends at an Italian restaurant in Hollywood. Reports described them as flirty, comfortable, and genuinely happy in each other's company. By February 2024, Inez had moved into Brad's Los Angeles home. Sources close to the couple revealed that their relationship had grown serious, more stable than anything Brad had experienced since his marriage to Angelina. In September 2024, they made their red carpet debut at the Venice Film Festival, walking hand in hand. For fans, it was a striking image. Brad Pitt, so long associated with heartbreak and failed marriages, smiling alongside someone who seemed to bring him peace. Yet even as he stepped forward with new love, the shadow of his past remained. For years, Brad had been linked to Jennifer Aniston in the public imagination, and every new relationship he entered was inevitably compared to the one that came before. No matter how many women he dated, no matter how serious the bond, the question always returned: had Brad ever truly moved on from Jennifer? If the years with Angelina brought passion and turmoil, and the years that followed brought fleeting romances, why does Jennifer Aniston remain the one name that fans and Brad himself can never let go of? The love that never faded. In 2007, just 2 years after their divorce, Brad spoke to V magazine and revealed something few expected. "Jen and I still maintain a deep friendship," he said, "and have a lot of life together that isn't erased in any way." It was an admission that, despite everything, their bond had not been completely severed. For Jennifer, the pain of the divorce had been real, but even she had told Vanity Fair in 2006 that she still loved Brad and always would. Time passed, and the narrative around them shifted. By 2017, Brad had separated from Angelina Jolie, and suddenly Jennifer's name was once again tied to his. Fans whispered about reconciliation. Tabloids speculated endlessly, and the possibility of a reunion became a cultural obsession. The truth, however, was more nuanced. In February 2019, Brad attended Jennifer's 50th birthday party. It was a private moment, but the fact that he was there made headlines across the world. For fans, it was proof that their connection had endured. In January 2020, the two shared a warm embrace backstage at the Screen Actors Guild Awards, where Jennifer had just won for the morning show. Brad, who had also won that night, grabbed her hand and smiled as she walked away. The photos went viral instantly, with fans dissecting every gesture, every glance, convinced it revealed lingering affection. Later that year, the two reunited again for a virtual table read of Fast Times at Ridgemont High, a charity event featuring a star-studded cast. Brad and Jennifer played characters who flirted and exchanged suggestive lines, and their natural chemistry made the moment unforgettable. Fans swooned, convinced that the sparks had never died. Jennifer later spoke about it with ease, saying they were friends, that it was fun, and that there was no awkwardness. Yet for viewers, the playfulness between them was undeniable. Even as both insisted they were simply friends, the sense of unfinished business lingered. Jennifer, in interviews, continued to speak kindly of Brad, describing him as someone she would always care for. In 2006, just 1 year after their divorce, she had already said, "I love Brad. I really love him. I will love him for the rest of my life." Those words carried weight, and they still resonate years later. For Brad, the years with Jennifer had represented a kind of stability that none of his later relationships could replicate. Their marriage had collapsed under the pressure of fame and the allure of new passion, but in hindsight, it had been one of the few times his personal life felt grounded. When he spoke of Jennifer as a true friend years later, it was clear he valued her presence not just as a former partner, but as someone who had shaped him. To the public, their story remains one of Hollywood's greatest what-ifs. The golden couple, torn apart by circumstances, forever bound by history. Fans still argue about whether they should have given it another chance, whether they should have fought harder to stay together. And now, with Brad admitting in recent years that Jennifer Aniston was the love who never faded, the story has come full circle. It is not about whether they will reunite romantically. At this point, both have built separate lives, found other loves, and weathered the storms of fame. But in confessing that she was the one, Brad has acknowledged what millions of fans believed all along, that Jennifer Aniston was, and perhaps always will be, the love of his life. The man behind the confessions. For all the headlines about Brad Pitt's romances, the truth is that the man himself has changed profoundly over the years. Behind the red carpets and the tabloid photos, Brad has endured struggles that forced him to confront who he really was. After his split with Angelina Jolie, He opened up about his battles with alcohol and the work he did in therapy. He admitted that he had to face his flaws directly, recognizing how his choices had affected not only his relationships, but also his children. Sobriety gave him clarity, and therapy gave him the tools to finally talk about love without hiding behind charm or denial. What makes his recent confession so striking is not just that he named Jennifer Aniston as the love of his life, but that he did so after decades of growth. It was not the impulsive declaration of a young actor, but the measured reflection of a man who had lived, lost, and learned. That acknowledgement carried the weight of honesty and maturity, proving that sometimes it takes years, even decades, to understand the depth of a connection. Brad's journey shows that true love, even when it ends, can remain the defining story of a lifetime. For decades, Brad Pitt's name has been written in the headlines not just for his films, but for the women who shared his life. From the carefree romances of his youth to the red carpet glow with Gwyneth Paltrow, from the fairy tale wedding with Jennifer Aniston to the fiery passion and eventual collapse of his marriage to Angelina Jolie, his story has been as complex and dramatic as any movie he has ever made. Through it all, there were new faces, brief connections, and fleeting moments of happiness. But one bond has continued to capture the imagination of fans, and as Brad has finally admitted, his own heart as well. Jennifer Aniston was more than just a chapter in his life. She was the love that shaped him, the one he still holds close after everything else has faded. Their relationship may never return to what it was, but the respect, warmth, and quiet affection they continue to show one another speaks volumes about the depth of their connection. Do you believe Jennifer Aniston was always Brad Pitt's greatest love? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and join us for more unforgettable stories from Hollywood's history.